If you were a kid born in the 2000s like me, you grew up with, or at least heard about, Skylanders. This was the first type of Toys to Life video game, and man, this was a game that was like a gateway drug for me, and it hit me hard. Now, I've seen Toys to Life kind of get dogged on by a lot of YouTubers who have talked about it and made fun of it, but I've also noticed that this group of YouTubers is, how do I say this nicely, older? Most of the people talking about these games weren't in the target demographic. The power of Toys to Life was that it appealed to a child. And I love you, Scott, but there's absolutely no way you were playing with Skylanders when you were 18 years old. But me, I was playing Skylander Giants when I was 7. This game was perfect for my age range. And eventually when I ended up phasing out of Skylander Giants, that addiction was instantly replaced with Disney Infinity, and especially the best Star Wars game I've never talked about, Disney Infinity 3.0. This game, when I was 10 years old, was a masterpiece. But why? I wanted to go back and look at Disney Infinity 3.0 and why it's a Star Wars video game that no one talks about, but why I still think it's one of the best, even if it hasn't aged perfectly. First off, let's start with what is Disney Infinity 3.0? It's the third game in the Disney Infinity series, but if you don't really know, it's not really a traditional sequel. Disney has had so many IPs, every game ended up having its own theme. The first game was Pixar and Disney original characters like Mr. Incredible, Jack Sparrow, Jack Skellington. Disney Infinity 2.0 though was Marvel with Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man, and Avengers, and Disney Infinity 3.0 is Star Wars. But it's interesting with how Disney Infinity 3.0 is set up. So when you buy the original starter pack, you get the game, the base, and 2 characters, which were Ahsoka and Anakin, and the crystal piece, which contains our sweet levels. The original box only comes with the prequel Clone Wars levels, and that's going to be important, and we'll talk about that later. So with the main game, you can beat the entire game with the 2 characters you have. Anakin and Ahsoka are easily enough to play through the entire game, but where that sweet addiction comes in is with those DLC packs. In these, you get 2 new characters and brand new levels for the game. And what was incredible was these levels were just as big as the main game. So you definitely want to buy these levels, and then you also want to get the other characters that come with those eras. If you're going to pick up the Resistance pack, you're going to want to pick up Poe. If you pick up the original trilogy pack, you gotta get Darth Vader, and the prequels, you gotta get Obi-Wan and Darth Maul. It's not that complicated. You just want to collect all of these characters. And the way I think this is actually really smart that a lot of people don't talk about is how these characters were really cheap to buy. It was like $10 for one character, and that was great for parents to be able to buy them for kids' birthdays or for Christmas, and that makes this game last even longer. With how many characters you could get and add into the game, it felt constantly fresh. No kid was going to be able to have all of these characters all at once. You slowly got them over time and were able to play with them. It kept the game consistently new to a kid, and also with that, you got some sweet action figures. I think the biggest part of the Toys to Life conversation that I don't see enough people talking about is the toys. It might have just been me and my siblings that ended up playing with these, but we actually broke some of our figures. Like my poor Darth Maul was missing half of his lightsaber. I don't know when that snapped off. Maybe we weren't supposed to use these as action figures, but me and my siblings loved using them. I also just loved the style of the Infinity characters. I really like this 3D Play-Doh type of style. It's just a lot of fun and is really interesting and different compared to how detailed the Skylanders are. I think the style of the Infinity characters is a lot safer, which leads to a cleaner house style and consistency. Meanwhile, Skylanders, to juxtapose it to something, can have a lot more interesting characters like Hot Rod and Thumpback, but also they can have some very creative characters that end up not working completely out, like that bazooka dude. That thing was nightmare fuel. But the real reason you were getting these DLC packs wasn't for the action figures, no matter how cool they were, but it was because you wanted to get the DLC levels, because this game is so fun to play. Infinity 3.0 builds off the main story missions of Disney Infinity 2.0 and improves in nearly every aspect. Each of the 3 main stories is around 5 to 8 hours, but the reason it inspires you so much to keep playing is because it's an open world Star Wars game. Being able to go to Coruscant and Tatooine and Geonosis and just being able to fly between them as Anakin for me as a kid was an absolute dream. Disney Infinity 3.0's gameplay and story is about letting you play through the 3 original trilogies in an abridged way in a sandbox type of level design. It doesn't follow exactly, but it follows the main beats of these stories and just allows you to play around and kill guys, and it's just delightful when you're a kid. But what about now, I hear you say? How does it hold up 10 years later? And it's not perfect. Even when I was a kid, I thought the skill tree and progression system in this game was really boring, but the main gameplay of hack and slashing with a lightsaber as a Disney Infinity character was just so fun. I didn't really care about it, and it still holds up. But unlike some of my other favorite games from the 2010s, or even like the Star Wars Lego games from the 2000s, I don't think Disney Infinity 3.0 is a classic that you're really going to want to return to because there's so much work involved with it. One of the things we don't talk enough about in the video game industry is how hard is it to replay a classic game? Has it been ported to new systems? Has there been a remaster, a remake? What is the easiest way for people to play this game? If you put too much of a barrier in between it, people aren't going to go out of their way to play it. And you can actually play all of Infinity 3.0. All of it is on Steam with every character that you can just buy and unlock right off the bat for like $30. And I think it's a good option for people that just want to play this and try it out. But also I think one of the most interesting parts about Disney Infinity is that you kind of just had to be there. If you weren't actively collecting the toys while playing this game in its 1 to 2 year window, you just aren't going to get why this game was so exciting. Because just buying the game and playing it wasn't what this game was about. It was about collecting these characters and being able to collect Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars characters, sharing them with your friends, bringing them over to your friend's house and playing with them, being able to use a toy box mode and put all of your characters there and make these bizarre worlds and play with the Hulk and Hulkbuster and Yondu and Stitch and Mickey. This game was everything I wanted really in a game, and Disney Infinity 3.0 could only really exist during that time. And it really embodies the peak of the Toys to Life genre, combining every IP Disney had and creating a game that I don't think we'll ever get again. This game was pure childlike imagination, and it was just incredible. This game, though, for as big as it was, ended up being too big for its own good. They ended up overproducing all of these characters and ended up having to shut down because this was the last Infinity game because the characters just weren't selling. With how we're never going to get a Disney Infinity 4.0, that leaves Infinity 3.0 as the reminder of this insane Toys to Life time and a great reminder of the mid-2010s and the insanity that was video games during this time. And especially how they were really good at manipulating kids to make their parents bankrupt their house. But that does make it an interesting time capsule. Some games you're really only going to appreciate fully when they were coming out, and Infinity 3.0 is one of those ultimate games where it was at its peak during its heyday. But while Infinity 3.0 is far from a perfect game, it was a great game and deserved way more love than people give it credit for. Sure, it might have been part of a fad, but man, what a blast, and I was glad I got to be there when these games came out. But what do I do with all these figures now? I have no idea. I just have to hope that one day their value goes up and I give my kid a Boba Fett that sends him through college.